This is Todos Cafeteros, and today I'm covering match days 5 and 6 of the CONMEBOL 2026 World Cup Qualifiers from November 16th and 21st, 2023 respectively. So a special focus as always on the Colombian national team. So join me. First, I want to take a look at what the players have been up to since the last international break. So here's a brief update. We have Camilo Vargas, who is back after his red card against Uruguay and the following suspension against Ecuador. His team in the Mexican League, Liga MX, Atlas, with no wins, 2 draws and 4 losses since the last international break. Atlas finished second to last in the Apertura table, where the first round just concluded. John Arias won the Copa Libertadores with Fluminense. 2 yellow cards against Chile and Ecuador prevented him to play against Brazil and his club coach Fernando Diniz, who is coaching Fluminense and the Brazilian national team. A big miss in that game. There's Rafael Borré, who had his second child. Congratulations to him and his family. And then he also scored 2 goals in the 2 most recent games for Werder Bremen. Luis Diaz, on the other hand, went through traumatic days after his father was kidnapped and then days later freed again by the Colombian military. On the pitch, he has only come on as a late substitute for Liverpool most recently. Liverpool is currently in second spot behind Manchester City in the English Premier League, and Portuguese Diogo Jota has been the starter on his position. Lucho did score a late goal against Luton to save Liverpool a 1-1 draw. James Rodriguez did play in 4 out of 6 league matches for Sao Paulo in the Brazilian Serie A since his last international stint. He even started in 3 out of those 4 games. He had 2 assists against Grêmio. He wasn't part of the roster in the most recent 2 games for Sao Paulo though, as he was sick with gastrointestinal discomfort. Sao Paulo is currently 10th in the Brazilian league. Mateus Uribe only played in 1 game for Al Sadd in Qatar. Javier Machado played in 5 matches for Lens. Lens is currently 6th in the French Ligue 1. Machado played in both Champions League games against PSV Eindhoven though. In the league, he's usually only coming on as a substitute. Davinson Sanchez played 6 games for Galatasaray Istanbul, all of which over 90 minutes. He therefore ties with Vargas in game experience time, playing all 6 games since World Cup qualifying match day 4 for their club teams. Galatasaray faced Bayern Munich twice in the Champions League, but lost both games. Cuadrado and Frank Fabra did not travel with the team due to injuries. And so it's time to look at matchday number 5 and the game Colombia versus Brazil on November 16th in Barranquilla, Colombia. John Arias, as I said, suspended, having received 2 yellow cards in the World Cup qualifying phase against Chile and Ecuador. For him, you have Jorge Carrascal, who played more in center, Uribe over right, and then his substitute Sinistera later on in the second half. But let's start at the beginning of the game. Brazil with much more pressure from the start. Multiple chances in the first few minutes and the 1-0 for Brazil in the 4th minute. Perfectly executed Fernando Diniz football. Gabriel Martinelli, but you see the short pass game. Players only looking for options close by and moving forward in one bulk. After the goal, Brazil becomes a bit sloppy though. Colombia was effectively pressing high, forcing turnovers that immediately led to some good chances. Davinson Sanchez received a yellow card after having already received one against Ecuador, so he was then going to be suspended for the next game, which was against Paraguay. But now Colombia is building up pressure, especially through Luis Diaz and James. Carrascal is also involved. Lucho with many chances. Here's one from the 31st minute where he shows off his speed. The Brazilian defender blocks his shot with the leg though. Looking at formation again, here this is a snapshot from the 56th minute. You have a better representation of how Colombia played most of this game. and surprisingly was able to control the game as well. Brazil defended well in their own box, which is why Colombia hadn't scored at this point. Brazil sat back in the second half and went for counterattacks. Colombia with more control and determination in the second half, Lucho with more and more chances. A heated game now, Brazil hitting the post, Colombian players complaining about the referee, and more shots on goal by Lucho. And then finally, in the 75th minute, finally the overdue goal, a well-deserved goal for Lucho, for Colombia with his head. The game tied at 1-1, and then bang, bang, Lucho with his head again, just a few minutes after the 2-1 lead for Colombia, more than deserved, with Luis Diaz 2 goals, his dad being in the stadium. It was full of joy, full of emotions. Obviously the whole backstory here with Lucho's dad just being released days earlier from captivity after he was held hostage. Lucho, the game changer, the best player in this game. 2 goals, he secures Colombia's victory over Brazil. Colombia's first ever victory against Brazil in a World Cup qualifier. History was made. In the final 10 minutes, Brazil tried to push forward again, but it was not enough and it was too late. Colombia won 2-1 against Brazil after being down 0-1 early. And here's a look at the other results. And with Argentina losing, Colombia is now the only undefeated team in the competition. Not bad. And so the Colombian team took a flight over to Paraguay, where they would face the Paraguayan team who had just finished a scoreless draw in Chile. So it's match day 6, 5 days after match day 5, the final set of games in the year 2023. It's Paraguay versus Colombia on November 21st in Estadio Defensores del Chaco in Asunción, Paraguay. Davinson Sanchez suspended after 2 yellow cards in the competition, as I just mentioned earlier. We are looking at the formation here again, Vargas in goal, and you have a 4 defending chain with Borja, Lucumi, Jerry Mina is back, and Munoz. In defensive midfield, Castaño and Lerma, and then the offense, as expected, powerhouses, 4 powerhouses up there. You have James playing a traditional 10, you have John Arias letting himself fall back a little bit, and you have Lucho over left, Bore over right. Basically how this whole World Cup campaign has been working so far, and has been working great so far, ever since James got put in as a starter. Something I didn't expect, but something that's definitely working. And so the game started off with a controversial call. VAR checked this foul here and decided not to alert the referee. In my opinion, it's a clear foul. Why did VAR not signal the ref? But then in the 9th minute, just a few minutes later, you have a hand penalty. And this time the referee blows the whistle. And to me, definitely a penalty. You can give that penalty. James first wanted to take it, but Borré insisted. Luckily, he insisted. James is just as bad as Lucho at kicking penalties. And so Borré takes it, and Borré makes it 1-0. Borré with the goal here, and the 1-0 lead for Colombia early on. And then you have again Borré in the 35th minute with a huge chance. After that, Colombia keeps pressing. James in the 43rd minute hammers it against the crossbar. And so Colombia heads into halftime with a well-deserved 1-0 lead. They have at this point 57% possession, which would increase even in the second half. You have 7-3 shots at halftime, 3-0 shots on target, 2 of which were big chances. One time the woodwork saved Paraguay, 2 times the Paraguayan goalkeeper Carlos Coronel prevented Colombia from scoring more. In the second half, you have Lucho with a huge chance in the 57th minute. Again, goalkeeper Coronel who saved it big time. James substituted out in the 74th minute with a game high score of 8 out of 10. Paraguay afterwards kept trying but couldn't score a goal. Colombia won 1-0 and well deserved. In the second half, Paraguay had more shots but even less possession than in the first half. Over the entire game, it's pretty equal on shots. Colombia brought twice as many on target though, and so in the end, a deserved 1-0 win. And that means that Colombia has 12 points now after 6 games. 3 wins, 3 draws, no losses. And therefore, Colombia is the only undefeated team in the competition. The team remains undefeated after 14 games under coach Nestor Lorenzo. His trust in James paid off. He's playing him as a 10 and uses Lucho and Borré as forwards. Bold and risky, but it has worked so far. Colombia in 3rd spot now behind Uruguay and Argentina. And then just for a minute, let's look at some of the other events from those 2 match days. I don't want to review all of the games. I think that's a little bit too much, but let's look at some highlights here, or lowlights if you want to call it like that. Bolivia didn't only get its first points. No, they also won the game against Peru. And so all teams now with points on the board. In their second game, this time against Uruguay, they were dominated though and had no chance in a 0-3 loss. They are second to last now in the table because Peru only gets to 2 points with 2 draws. They haven't won a game, so Peru is last in the table. Brazil lost 3 games in a row now. Matchday 4 against Uruguay, Matchday 5 against Colombia, and Matchday 6 against Argentina. The game Brazil versus Argentina was delayed by half an hour because of Brazilian police clashing with Argentinian supporters in the stands. Players of both teams then headed into the corner. You can see Martinez, the Argentinian goalkeeper, attacking Brazilian police for them hitting Argentinian supporters. The game started with half an hour delay and ended with a deserved 1-0 win for Argentina. On the road in Brazil, always a tough challenge. Probably the last match of Fernando Diniz. He was still allowed to coach. Brazil doesn't really have a game until March of next year when they play a friendly against England, and then you have the Copa America in the summer next year. I think by this time you might have Ancelotti already taking over, so I doubt that Diniz will stick around for that one friendly in March of next year. But all of that means that this is the table now. After 6 match days, you have Argentina in top position, Uruguay second, followed by Colombia. Colombia only 3 points behind Argentina, and what's more important, 7 points ahead of spot 7 that's currently occupied by Paraguay. Basically the spot that would send you into additional playoffs at the end of the campaign. But with 6 games played, we are 1/3 in the World Cup qualifying stages here in CONMEBOL. You have all 6 games in 2023 concluded, which means we have another 6 games in 2024 and then the remaining 6 games in 2025. And after 18 games, we will know who's going to the World Cup in the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Venezuela in 4th, so that's another surprise here. 9 points for Venezuela. Venezuela only lost 1 game. That was the first game against Colombia, the game I went to in the stadium. You can go into the playlist or click the link here and re-watch those moments. But that was Venezuela's only loss. They just hamstered another 2 points here with 2 draws in match days 5 and 6, and now are 4th in the table. Brazil in 6th, disappointing. I have no doubt that they will be able to turn things around and do qualify for the World Cup. Obviously, with a coaching change there next year and a different system that makes sense for this group of players, I think they will recover. I don't think they'll catch Argentina, but again, you don't really have to. First 6 are in. Doesn't really matter where you end up other than your prestige and your pride. At the bottom, you have Paraguay, Chile, Bolivia, and Peru fighting for the playoff spot at this point. Those teams have to pick it up and have to win the games against each other to kind of get into 7th position, or hope that some of the teams up there might drop out for them to catch them. But that should not be any of our concerns if we're focusing on the Colombian team. As long as we keep playing how we're playing, I think this will be a successful World Cup qualifying campaign. Again, 1/3 in, things are looking good. For now, this was Todos Cafeteros. There aren't any World Cup qualifying matches this year anymore. So those will continue on September 5th, 2024. Until then, I'll talk more about the Colombian League and Cup So if you're interested in that, sign up and subscribe. Hit that like button. Thank you for watching, and until next time. Thank you.